Mike, once again, thank you for making time for us to be able to engage with you.
Sure.
And to bring some information to some of the young people who are aspiring to at some point get to the level where you are at this point.
All right.
Mike, I'd like us to maybe just take a journey back to your childhood. What are the memories that you have growing up in Guatemala?
I grew up in Guatemala, in Malaza. I'm sure you know the street.
Wow, I'm from Makaula, so.
Oh no, yeah, Makaula was more like, no, I shouldn't say that. I'll get it. So I grew up in Malaza. I was raised, my mother died when I was a kid. I was raised by my grandmother, who obviously took over when my mother, but the interesting thing, my mother never spent time with us. She was always at work. My mother worked as a domestic, and she used to come in on Saturday morning and leave on Sunday afternoons. And I wouldn't see her. The person who took control of everything was my grandmother. So the greatest memory for me, I've always been behind, next to my grandmother, wherever she was. After school, the best thing I learned was, the memory of, the poverty. We used to go hungry. Yeah. I mean, I always laugh and joke with my daughter that was the best opportunity for me to become fully vegan at that time. Because you ate pap and spinach pap and cabbage pap and
eggs.
Potato pap. No.
Pap and eggs when you have a good time. Eh?
Yeah, when you're having a good time. So the memory of poverty, number one. The second memory for me is my grandmother. I must tell you, I know I'll bore you to death about telling you stories about my grandmother, but she was very close to me. I was close to her. I was raised by her. She raised us. And then the third important thing is the number of people in a four-roomed house. We were so many at number 9 Malaza, 4-room. There were uncles, there were cousins, and that's the third important thing. The fourth important thing that for me prominently came out was the fact that I believed at the time that whatever my grandmother told me was the truth. And it was the truth. It was the truth.
Yeah.
My grandmother taught me to wake up very early. At times it would be school holidays and she would still wake you up early in the morning, make the fire on a stove. And you would ask yourself, now that you are an adult, to say, why did we have to wake up, wash and be clean and be presentable? For what? Because it was school holidays. But in the morning, I was early at school. I used to wear my school uniform. I was proper at school. What I mean by proper is I had my school uniform, shoes were polished, I never missed on my school days. That's the memory of that old lady, a matriarch who was very, very disciplined. And that disciplining of people, funny enough, has rubbed into me. And I watch petty things. At times, as a CEO, as a chairman of Massimo, which is our business that is a shareholder here in Seriti, as a shareholder in a lot of businesses, I come across criticism from people who would say, Mike, but there are times where you chase things that are
very pedantic.
They're pedantic, exactly. But they make sense because they create a wrong habit in some other people. So for me, the best memory that growing in a four-roomed house, being a large number of people. 2, the discipline with my grandmother. 3, the food. We used to go hungry, but we were full. We used to eat pap and spinach, pap and cabbage. Not in a negative way that was, no, it was life. It was normal, it was okay. The fourth important thing is, there was a funny thing I don't forget, and it has rubbed on me in a positive way again. We used to pay rent. I'm sure you know that. If you missed paying rent, the superintendent at that office, he used to come with that Springs Municipality Police who used to dress in black. We used to call them Mama Pezania. You were still a kid, probably. But for me, the important thing was my grandmother had to pay rent. She never missed that. The discipline. For me, that's core.
Yeah.
And then the people you came across who, unfortunately, something that is negative in my family, at the time, alcohol. My brothers drank, my uncle drank. And I think the alcohol situation was sad for me, honestly. It took away, it didn't make people drunk. That's not the issue for me. It took away that dignity.
Yeah.
The dignity of people being able to be themselves, to be strong, to be, at that time, men were known to be hardworking, providers and the like. Things have changed now, you know.
Yeah.
But that was the memory, that's the memory that still sits with me in the township.
So, you know, Mike, hearing you say that, especially around the issue of alcohol in our communities, you know, my earliest memories of in the township, and I draw parallels in your story,
Yeah.
because you talk about the four-roomed house, you know, having to, early in the morning, you'd eat soft porridge, you come back from school, soft porridge.
Yeah.
You go, when you have to go to bed, you have porridge and some cabbage or whatever the case may be. But this was life for us. It was normal. Yes, we knew we were poor, but you know, there was nothing that we were missing outside of the fact that we had love at home. You know, you had love from your grandmother, I had love from my mother.
Ah.
And when you speak of the issue of alcohol, you know, and you say it strips people of their dignity, I remember very well my uncle, who I still have very fond memories of, and he was a bright young man who was going places, young manager at his age, in the times of apartheid, you know, and this young man was a manager, and alcohol literally stripped him of everything that he had. He lost it all. He lost it all, and you literally see the impact of how alcohol can destroy somebody's life.
Yeah.
Literally.
And truth be told, it's not that we're saying alcohol is bad. It's
No,
how people
no,
treat it, you know, handle it and all that.
I mean, it goes back to the fact that for the amount of time we've been on lockdown, the biggest issue for a number of young people currently has been the fact that they can't go buy alcohol. And people are celebrating as the president announced that we are going to level 3 and alcohol will now be sold. And it amazed me. I'm not an anti-alcohol type of person, but it amazed me that of all the things we should be thinking about, we are celebrating the fact that we will have access to alcohol. And that for me is a tragedy.
Yeah, it is.
It's a tragedy.
It is.
So thanks for that, Mike. So I'd like to share a story, and you know, it's one of the earliest memories also that I have of living in Guatemala. And as I said, I was a Makaula, so at my grandmother's house. And as you know, Makaula, then you have Khaswan. So Khaswan is the main road. And growing up, you'd have, now and then you're sitting in the house and you just hear these struggle songs being sang on Khaswan. It just, you know, and you know it's comrades just going through. And as a young kid, you are curious, you want to be part of it, you want to run and actually see what's going on. And one of the earliest memories I have was going to a khaswan as our comrades were singing and you know, and chanting. And all of a sudden there's this big yellow truck, the police at the time, we used to call it a hippo. And a hippo just shows up, and all of a sudden everybody scatters in the midst of this tear gas. It's very thick mist of tear gas, and everybody has to run around. But it was strange. That was the struggle in the late 80s, because I was born in that space, and early 90s when the first democratic president was released, Nelson Mandela. But post that, mid 90s, we had this feud in Guatemala between Paso and Cosas, and I remember very well how it was such a tragic time in the township, because you had a young man going up against his brother and literally killing each other. We lost so many brothers around that time. And those parents who could afford literally were taking their kids to the neighboring townships, Botsakane, Duduza, to those schools, because schools in Guatemala, you'd go for 2 months without actually going to school because of the violence. It was so hectic that, you know, the gunshot was literally a soundtrack to our lives. Where you would not be shocked by hearing a gunshot. You'd continue doing what you're doing, because you're hearing it almost every day, every now and then. It's just there's a gunshot going around. So it was, you know, as I reflect on my youth, I think about all these things and how they've led us to the type of township we've had, and the type of township we have now in Guatemala. But just going on that, what do you think were the most significant challenges that you faced as a young person growing up in Guatemala? Not in, maybe just young person towards your adulthood.
So the first one is my grandmother. My grandmother's death left me in a way open to not having somebody you relied on very strongly. She didn't have money, but it was just that vacuum of not having somebody who's a parent, because we used to call her Ma because she was a mother. And she taught me that grit, that ability. I don't walk away from things. And that's a lesson that young people should learn. I just don't walk away from things. That's the first lesson. The second lesson for me in Guatemala was that I grew up in a township where I respected a lot of people who, there were very special people in my life I looked up to. And some of those people, Mr. Mabokhwane, who's his father, you know, those were special people. And then I used to watch people like the tycoons in Guatemala. And the reflection for me was not because I wanted to have money. I mean, it's a good thing to have money, obviously. I used to watch, Babu Dube, all those people, the world people, they own filling stations and the like. So you used to think at the time that because you're growing in a township, life ends there in the township, and that's not true. You know, if you read a book called My Vanishing Country by Bakari Salas, he talks about, doesn't mean if you started on a gravel road, you'll end up in that gravel road. You're probably going to end up on a tarmac somewhere and flying a big aeroplane owned by yourself. But the third big challenge for me has always been the can-do attitude in Guatemala, in any township. You know, I still believe, Reggie, we're not doing enough to drive ourselves, to drive the kids who are growing in the township, to have that can-do spirit, which is something that is in me. I mean, in this business, I always drive people to just fight hard, but not fight as in, I'm not talking physical fight, I'm not talking violence, I'm talking about having grit, pushing things, driving that. I believe the biggest challenge I've seen in the township, we, to some extent, sort of ingrained a small culture of, should I call it dependency? There's money at home, there's food at home, I'm going to sleep at home.
And an entitlement of sorts.
I'm entitled to something. Why does this thing happen to me? Well, things will happen to you, especially as you continue to grow up. So the challenge for me was losing my grandmother, the challenge of not having, and there was a funny thing in me. Funny enough, I learned it from a neighbor of mine, Uvusinkosi. He's in Durban now. He's going to be a big, powerful judge. He was clever when he was a kid. He was smart. I've admired him. He's a good friend of mine. I used to see something with Vusu. We never admired people who had things. You never wished to have a Mercedes-Benz at home. It was not going to be there.
Yeah.
You know, there was an old Zephyr 1958 car parked out there. I never saw it driven by anybody. I never had that. So the biggest challenge was for me, how do you get yourself out of this cycle? Had you been trapped in that, you probably wouldn't be able to get out of that. So the biggest challenge was the loss of my grandmother. The second one, the environment, that probably challenged you to say, buddy, it ends here. From a gravel road, you'll end in a gravel road, which is not true.
It's quite interesting that you say that, Mike, because I'm playing it back to my time growing up at home. When you mention the entrepreneurial spirit that was alive in Guatemala at the time, the likes of Abubab Dube, Abubab Mlangeni, Abubab Makaula, and all of these giants, you know, I always think of when I was growing up at early age of around, I think I was 9, 10, 11, every morning or so on a Saturday, I had to go out and sell. Because at home nobody worked. My mother would then obviously buy certain items and would then go out and sell those items. And I would have to leave the house at around 7 a.m. in the morning. I'd be selling a sadi roll on. I don't know if you remember sadi. I'd be selling it glycerine. I'd be selling steel wool. And I'd walk around the township the whole day, door to door, knocking on doors, trying to sell these items. And it's because of when you saw those particular individuals who had already set up structures, there were garages, there were shops, there were all these things that they'd actually been able to build. So our aspiration was not based on a nice car.
No.
It was based on creation. It was based on building something from nothing. And it's quite true what you're saying, because at this stage in the townships, you see very little of that, because there's very little people who are creating within the township space. And it's more, we aspire to be like Mike because we saw Mike's car, but you really don't understand what goes into actually making that car available. And you're not really concerned about the actual work that goes into it. You're just concerned about the end product.
Yeah.
So it's quite an interesting thing that you actually are referring to that. And it makes more sense to me. You think about back then, the fact that, you know, our role models were Abu Bamlange, you know, with all the shops he had, with the garages and all those things. And you're thinking to yourself, wow, you know, and you never saw him driving a fancy car. It wasn't about that.
No.
It wasn't about that. We're just thinking, wow, this is a black man who has created something that will be a legacy for his children, because it will be passed on from generation to generation. What would you say would have been some of the significant moments that have shifted your thinking or have shifted your trajectory? I have to go back to the fact that at some point when you came back from varsity, you became an educator.
Yeah.
And you know, that's what happened. What shifted you from saying, okay, I'm in this education sector, and this is what I'm doing. How do I move out of this and actually go and pursue what I want to pursue?
Well, the first important thing is, as I say, one thing that's ingrained in me is that grit. You know, I'm driven. You know, we sit in this office, we talk about our businesses. I always tell the team that things must happen. This morning, we're talking about coherence. This business, we talk about 3 principles: simplicity, intensity, and consistency. The middle one being intensity. I'm a very intense personality. If I said to you, I want 100 Rand today, you brought 99 Rand, I will chase you to bring 100 Rand. I'm giving an example, not about money, but I'm talking numbers. I then went to university, studied social sciences and education, because I didn't have money. The core to that was Upapa, Mr. More, identifying that probably he saw something, I don't know what it is, but he believed in me. He still believes in me. I think Upapa believes that I can fly a 747. He thinks I can do anything.
You're the model child.
Yeah, to
you're
him,
the model child.
I've
like
always been.
The star.
And truth be told, there's something special about Mr. More. He never waited for me to be where I am today. No. I was a poor kid when he took a risk on me and said, this guy. And he helped me. The second part for me, I then went into teaching because I had studied. I never wanted to put an excuse on the table to say we poor, we don't have money and all that. I did what I did. I realized when I was a teacher that I start work at 8 o'clock and that we finish at 2 o'clock. And then what happens in the afternoon? And the question I was asking myself, what will my kids ask me during school holidays if I don't go to work? My own children. But it was not meant to ridicule teaching, no. Teaching is a noble profession. It's meant for certain people. It's meant for people who are dedicated, who have dignity, who are committed to this. I'm a different type of animal. I am meant to create things, as you say. I've always wanted to build an empire. And I'm on the path to building that. Nothing is going to stop us and me. Nothing will stop me. I am going to build the businesses I'm working on. I do come across challenges, difficult times, where you walk to the parking lot to take your car and you say, today was not an easy day. But guess what? I'm going nowhere. This thing must happen tomorrow. This thing must happen. I'm not one of those who would say, oh my God, I'm in despair now, I must throw away everything. So to get to your question, as an educator, that fire in me was, Mike, you need to go and do something. And I won't do it as a teacher. I probably would have got a master's degree, PhD, and became a professor at university. Maybe, I don't know. But truth be told, there's always been this thing in me that I must build businesses. And thanks God, my understanding of business, my understanding of the numbers, processes, has come naturally. You know, thanks God for that. Thank God for that. I'm not arrogant about it. It's just out of humility that I'm happy that if you put something on the table. You know, Massimo is invested in coal mining. Massimo is invested in agri. Massimo is invested in financial services. Massimo is invested in industrials. Massimo is invested in some technology businesses that are interesting. I still believe that the very question you're asking me, that fire made me restless. And I continue to be restless. I continue to have fear, the interesting type of fear. If Reggie said to me, we'll meet at 2 o'clock here, there's fear in me that if I arrive at 20 past 2, it's not right. If I arrive at 5 past 2, it's not right. I must wait for Reggie. I must wait for Reggie. I must be here at 10 to 2. It's fear of not wishing to disappoint Mike, not Reggie. Same applies with business. When we chase a transaction, we're busy with 2 big transactions at the moment. They must happen. I'm not bullying anybody. I'm not forcing anybody to do anything. I don't do anything wrong. I'm merely saying it's focus and grit. And that's what I'm asking for from kids in the township. You know, my pain is when I drive into the township. You stop your car, maybe somewhere where people know you. There's no kid who would ask you a question that says, how did you end up driving a car like this? What happened?
Just going back to what you were saying now and some of the challenges, what I found interesting in what you're saying is you identifying that this is not who I am, this is where I should be. And it takes me back to a moment I had in my life where at some point as a graduate, I found myself sitting at home, unemployed. And you know, when you're at home, and you can, a lot of us as young people fall into this cycle. You're at home, you're a graduate, you're unemployed. Then all of a sudden, the only thing you do every day, you wake up, you sit outside with other people, do absolutely nothing, talk about absolutely nothing. The whole day, the day is gone. Go back to the following day, same routine. And I remember one day I was in the house and I was watching a television program. I got Dr. David Malawi from an Icon Foundation. And the program was really about, it was this motivational speaking and preaching. And one of the things he said that really stuck with me at the time, he said, an eagle will never learn how to soar as long as it lives amongst chicken. The only thing to learn at that point is how to eat the dirt off the ground. And he was basically saying, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to get to Mike's level, you have to hang out with Mike. You have to find a way to get closer to Mike so that Mike, not because wealth or success rubs off, but because the thinking that Mike is applying in actually getting to where he is, he may be able to start changing your thinking as well. By the way you associate, because the people you associate with shape the way in which you think. And for me, that was a very profound statement, because that day I remember very well, I was in a hopeless situation. But that moment mobilized me to take action with my life. And going from there, and I related to something you said, Mike. I saw an interview last year of you, where you said, when the question was, how did you get to a point where you owned a mine? And the response to me, it was probably one of the most profound things, and most people wouldn't hear it, but you have to be tuned in to listen to what is being said. The question was, how did you find yourself owning a mine? And you said, at the time you were working for one of the mining companies, and the mining company was at a point where they were selling some of their mining assets. And as they were selling some of the mining assets, obviously they are inviting black-owned companies to come in and tender to buy these mines. And this was millions, hundreds and millions of rands that's obviously required to purchase this mine. But your response to the situation was, why not me? And you were an employee at the time. Your response was, why not me?
The discussion at that time at BHP Billiton was the names which you knew at the time in the 2003, 2002 time. People like the president of the country, Cyril, why not, let's talk to Cyril, let's talk. And I said, wait. I work here. I know these assets. I worked at Optima. I worked at all those mines. The mines that I'm busy acquiring now, South 32 assets, I worked at those mines. Some of the people who are still there, they know me very well. I'm saying it out of humility. I'm not being arrogant about it, but I understand the game. And I said to them, guys, I'm ready. And they said to me, go and raise the money. Because that's the trap that you face all the time, you know? In our culture, Reggie moyo lobola, bakubuza ukuthi mfana sowusebenzile na. You know that type of thing. Yes. When I went to pay lobola, my father-in-law, Mr. Kanyile, said that. And I felt that I had worked because I wanted to marry Usandi. And I'm married to her now 28 years, and she's it turned out very great. It was the right decision. The point I'm making to you is that you have to have the conviction. My pain, if you go to Guatemala now, which is our township, Reggie, the kids who stand at the corner there, they meet a guy who's talking about somebody who's knitting jerseys, and they go and chase that person. Somebody who's selling chairs, they chase that person. They're busy for 365 days a year. And not December 31st, they turn around and say, what did you do? Nothing. For me, grit. You drive these things and you become so focused. And that I wanted mining badly. I wanted to run Optimum. I wanted to turn it around, and I said I will create wealth for people. And I did. I'm proud of that. Right now we're running operations, the Siriti operations. I'm the CEO. I am the non-executive chairman of Masimung, which is my family business. Guess what? I've allowed Althea Discala to run it. I'm proud of that. It's run by black females, that business. There's no male in Masimung, in the corporate structure. Reggie, everything is driven by the fire in you that I must get that. I want it. Much as you have the ability to wake up at 2 a.m., I want to go and steal something if you are a thug. I saw somebody's car and the window I'm going to break the window and steal it. Why don't we channel our energy to the things that are going to make us change this world, change this country?
True.
Today, me and you are sitting in this discussion, we're talking COVID-19. It's a calamity. It's a pandemic. But in every calamity, there's an opportunity. Huge opportunities.
True.
And we need to look for those opportunities. And I'm one of those people. I don't fight with anybody. I'm not anybody's enemy. I just want to build something beautiful for myself and my generation, and to look back and say, you know what? We have created something for this country.
No, you know, Mike, that's why not me. Literally, it took me back to that moment I had when I heard David Malapo saying, an eagle will not soar as long as it's around chickens. Because the why not me, for me, how I contextualized it and what I heard when you're saying that was, at times as people, we have our self-imposed limitations.
Yes.
Because of our self-imposed limitations, we can't see opportunities, because an opportunity will go past you, but because you do not see yourself having the capability or the ability to actually take on this opportunity, you literally don't see it as an opportunity, you just move on.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, why me, we have to become a generation that says, why not me?
Yeah. Exactly. Why not me? And I don't come from a prominent family. Teke is not a known name, but it is going to be my name, my family name, not out of arrogance, I repeat. I've always driven myself. Muzikuzwa will tell you that much as Rockefeller built what he built, JP Morgan built what he built, I want the Teke name. 15, 20 years, everybody must look back and say, that person shaped something for this country, made a difference. Not for South Africa only, sub-Saharan Africa, the whole of Africa, probably globally. There are businesses that I'm going to drive, and they will be key global players.
On that note, I'm looking for Mike Teke's personal excellence principles. What are the principles that drive Mike Teke to become the Mike Teke we know today?
You know, I always say early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. My grandmother didn't know that. It was in a textbook somewhere. But my grandmother said to me, you wake up early. Be ahead of the game. By the time I sit on this desk in the morning, when people arrive at 7:30, 8 o'clock, everything is cleaned up. Emails are gone, appointments are gone, the day is clear for me. When 8 o'clock comes, I'm walking around here. It's an open plan. I walk around. I drive myself to make sure that everything happens early. I go to bed at 9. By 9:10, 9:30, I'm a zombie. I'm tired because I drive myself. That's the first thing. The second one is, show me somebody who was killed by hard work, guys. Show me. Somebody who was killed by hard work. I'm worried about a generation that doesn't work. Guys, it's painful. It's not easy. You know, we're all fighting for the same resources. And these resources are finite. If you run ahead and get to them first, you'll be the winner. The third important thing, I started talking to you about being early. Second one is hard work. But the third one is, I know people criticize and say, yeah, but hard work, you have to be smart and all of that. Let me tell you, lazy people will always come up with that story. Lazy people will come up with that story. Find something that is here, that you love, that you can talk about, that you'll be proud of. I love mining. I'm not a mining engineer, but I sit in a room with mining people. I love the game. I love that. But beyond that, I love the spirit, Reggie, of not being a burden to the next generation. Me and you, posterity will judge us. Your little boy, your little girl is going to ask you one day and say, Dad, why? Why is this happening to us? And you'll be coming with excuses of saying, oh, I lost my birth certificate, or I lost this piece of paper, this thing. No. We've got to work hard. We've got to be driven. We've got to make things happen.
Yeah.
For us to be able to wake up early and chase other things that are not priority, we need to change that focus and take it to the things that shift the dial. That's for me. So for me, early, wake up, wake up. Second one, hard work, hard work. Don't ever listen to people say, oh, no, don't worry, work smart. No, it doesn't come easy. It doesn't come easy. The last big one is focus. You'll never take away my focus. Reggie, I come across people who come here and present, Mike, we've got an idea for you, we've got a concept, I always say, don't lose focus. When my sister Maria, who's still alive, Malaza, said to me, I said to her, I'm going to play soccer. When I was still young at university, I want to play professional football. And she said, no. School, focus on your education. I've got another cousin, sister out city, same thing. Mike, focus, finish your school. And those things are ingrained in me, they don't go away. At times, Reggie, I feel like I can stop my car. Any car I drive, at Tema, there are 5 or 6 young people standing. I just wish I could stop, get out of my car and go and talk to them and say, guys, what's happening? And those are the guys you're talking about, Reggie, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, it's a pity, Mike, and I hear you talk about this whole thing of focus. You know, I often think to myself, so there are a number of things that are quite ingrained in me.
Yeah.
For me, personal excellence stems from purpose, understanding one's purpose. When you understand your God-given purpose, you are on your way to getting to realize your personal excellence. But apart from that, once you have understood your purpose in life, you have to understand that, because exactly what you're saying, there'll be challenges. There are days where you'll come into work and at the end of the day, you're like, oh shucks, this day.
Why am I doing this?
This day was a bad day. And you have to have relentlessness. You have to be relentless in what you're pursuing at that point, because there are so many obstacles you'll face, be it people, be it structural obstacles, be it systematic obstacles, but you have to be relentless as a person to actually get to where you need to get to. Then there's sacrifice. You know, the issue of sacrifice is quite an important thing for me, because it takes me back to a number of years back. A friend of mine once said to me, Reggie, I mean, why are you awake at like 2 or 3 in the morning, working, doing all this stuff? We should be at the club. And I thought to myself, do you understand that life is about opportunity costs? For every choice you make, you forgo something. Yeah. So for every time I go to the club and I'm not studying, or I am not working on a concept, or I'm not working on an idea, whatever it is that I need to be doing for my future, I am foregoing my dream. Yeah. And it's quite interesting that young people are so interested in becoming these groove people. They want Uyo Jiva almost every weekend. And I'm thinking to myself, what are you celebrating? What have you achieved? Yeah. What is it that you're celebrating every weekend? Because there's nothing wrong with having a good time now and then. But when you are the type of person who walks into Monday and thinking, Friday so yenzani what? Yeah. And that's the only focus we have in life, your priorities are incorrect. And I go back to another one which you mentioned at some point, which is work ethic. The poor work ethic that I see out there from individuals I've led in the businesses that I've worked in, and to just people that I see out there. It is so unfortunate that as South Africans, especially South African young people, the work ethic is so lacking that there is this entitlement attitude that I should just do the bare minimum, and by tenure or whatever, because of skin color or whatever the case may be, Mike must just say, you know what, you're my next CEO. Yeah. And I don't have to apply myself. I don't have to, you know, when you talk about, a lot of people might not know this, when we were planning for this engagement, which was supposed to be a day workshop done in the township, I would send you an email at around 6 and you'd immediately reply, because you're already working that your day has started. You are actually an active and productive individual. Yes. At 6 in the morning. And you know, 6 to about 6 in the afternoon, or 7 in the afternoon, we are working. And that's people who are chasing something, who are working towards goals and dreams. So I thank you for that, Mike, because you actually are speaking to some of the things that I do believe in. Sure. And I think there is alignment in that regard. And I think a lot of young people will benefit from hearing it, not from just me, because some of them will believe, oh, well, Reggie's not Mike. But when they hear it from Mike, they'll be like, okay, maybe this whole concept of work ethic, working hard, sacrifice, being relentless in pursuing your dreams and your goals is actually something that actually makes people realize what they want to do in life. Yeah. Maybe just closer to wrapping up. I don't know, maybe it's me, yeah. But as we started chatting, I said, you're not somebody who was well known to me. Yeah. And I gather that you've loved a much more private life. You're not too public. You don't like your stuff being known publicly. And it's quite interesting that you want to leave a legacy that says Teke built. Yeah. You know, and I mean the only time I've ever heard of you, and I don't know if I should even mention it here. When you read about Mike, and the other time Teke and I were reading an article, and one of the things that came out was the CR17 campaign. Yes, and you were mentioned there as one of the donors. Yes. And I was like, I'm sure Mike is not happy about being mentioned here. How did that feel?
Okay, that's a good question. You know, I sacrifice. You're right, sacrifice is important. You know, I've sacrificed my health in a way, but I'm strong. I go to the gym, I look after myself. For us to do something, you sacrifice certain things. I've watched my wife sacrificing for me. Sandy sacrificed her career. She's a qualified person. She's got 2 degrees. She said, I'll raise my kids. You go to work. She sacrificed for me. And that, had I not been married to a person like that, probably things would have been different. So I must give her lots of credit for having said, you run the show, you run. I'll take care of these 2 kids. Things have turned out very well. At times I do regret that I would have loved to drive them to school, but it never happened because she made that sacrifice. And I've made sacrifices, so the balance is beautiful. I love to keep my family private. I love to keep my things private. It so happened by accident that I'm in a listed space. Rolls, Anchor, Optimum was listed. Then you end up, if you are in a listed space, it's like you're running naked on a freeway because effectively everybody wants to know everything. Do I regret it? To some extent, yes. When I was mentioned as a donor in the CR17 campaign, obviously I said, I donated. I agree. I donated money and I don't regret it at all. The most important part for me today is to look back and say, it would have been nice not to mention it. Why? Because it's like kids who go to university. I pay for a lot of students' bursaries. Reggie, I don't like it to go and say to people, do you know Sipho Dlamini, I pay his fees. It's demeaning in my view. It's not right. It's like you pulling one of your, not disrespect your slaves and say, look at him now, I've made him fat, something like that. I don't like taking that deep. But these young people I sponsor at university, they graduate. A young lady called Kemise Kilame calls me, I'm her father now. She says, I want to talk about this. It's fine. So I'd love to keep my family private. I'd love to keep my things private. When I give things away, when I support people, when I speak at places, I don't talk about those things. So that donation as well didn't disappoint me. I'm not disappointed. I donated, but it shouldn't have been mentioned. I don't like those things being mentioned, simply because it just looks, to some extent, looks like you're bragging.
Yeah, true.
I'll give you money, Reggie, if you mention my name. And then you mention my name and then I feel good. No, it's not right. But if me and you, let's say we came in with an arrangement and said, Mike, can we do a big thing for Malaza and Makaula people one day? We organize a beautiful thing at Kenneth Masikela as an example. Probably it would be a nice dinner and all those things. But I don't want to be standing there and say, oh, I gave you 200 Rand for that plate, I'd like to, how many times do we donate at Kitseo, Guatemala Socioeconomic Organization? The difference is that you buy tables. So people want to know I'm sitting at Mike's table and they're like, that's the differentiator. But yes, I love to keep my family private. I'd love to keep my life private. And when that donation was disclosed, it was unfortunate. But there was nothing I regret.
Okay. So in closing, once again, thanking you for your time.
Sure.
Of late, we see this trend, and it goes back to some of the things you mentioned earlier, that you are not motivated by material things to become the Mike you are today. It was a motivation to create something. But there seems to be a trend, especially amongst black people, where we are more concerned with material things. And I go back to I think a week ago, where a young man posted a video of himself having bought 4 or 5 luxury cars, and everybody just goes, oh, he's the man, he's the man. And I know for a fact, and this is more on a lighter note, that you drive you've got quite a great fleet of cars, but you've never ever displayed to people that Mike drives this type of cars. What drives that?
It so happened that I grew up in Guatemala. There was a funny red Alfa Romeo in Guatemala. You won't know it maybe. It was in one of the sections at Tycoon Village. Somebody owned a red Alfa Romeo. I used to be fascinated about owning a red car. It was a funny thing. That's history. I want to build. Let me give you a picture like this. If you look at JP Morgan, go and read the story of JP Morgan. It's on Netflix, it's everywhere. Go and read the story. No, it's not on Netflix, it's somewhere. Go and read the story of the Rothschilds, the family. Those people have built massive empires. history will never forget them. They are in their graves now. They are resting in peace. May God bless them. But nobody walks away in the US not talking about those families, those names, those special people. I want 20, 30 years down the line, somebody would say, Teke left this. It's a legacy. It will be here for generations. That's my big wish. That's my big wish. But you don't remember me and say, Mike passed here in a beautiful Ferrari. And then somebody can buy it tomorrow. You know, it's material things. My dream is I want to build a legacy.
Yeah.
I want to build a legacy of building powerful, powerful institutions where Reggie respects what I do. Buikanyo, my son, respects what Reggie does. Are you with me?
Yes.
Reggie's son goes to Buikanyo, my son, and say, Uncle Buikanyo, my father was Mr. Sibeko. You know that type of thing. That's what generational issues should be.
Yeah.
But I don't want Buikanyo coming to you and say, Uncle Reggie, can I borrow your Ferrari? To do what?
Yeah. And then
I'm not jealous because I have those things. For me, is guys, let's build legacies. You know, right now, this country is crying for take us over. Black people take us over, as in take over this economic engine, take over this social engine, dictate terms going into the future. What type of education, what type of leadership, what type of credentials we want from males and females. That's what this country is crying for. It's not crying for a noisy Ferrari on the road. It's one of those things.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Reggie. I know you're going to drive a Ferrari soon.
No, I will.
It's coming.
And then
my son will come to me and say, Dad, do you know Uncle Reggie Sibeko? And I'd say, yes. And I'll pick up the phone and say, please, my son wants to talk to you for a minute. That's what life is.
Yes.
That's not life. Yeah.
No, that's something. You know, when I think about, we all have dreams, especially as boys. We'll have our toys.
Yeah.
But when they're the only driving mechanism behind a man, then there's a problem.
There's a problem.
Because there should be things that you have because you can afford to have them, but not because they're the symbol of who you are.
Yeah.
They should never be a symbol of who you are.
Yes.
True. Thanks, Mike.
Reggie, thank you.
This was a wonderful chat.
It was a good chat. Thank you very much.